Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Planning and Action meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could have a roll call.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Here.
For this next one, I'd like to say it is with heartfelt sympathy that we acknowledge the recording of Mr. Burt absent this evening. Mr. Mark Buterball.
Present.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Here.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Fred's here. He'll be right back.
We'll mark him as present. Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Here.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Here.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Here.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Here.
Mr. Arian Gaunkar.
Here.
Miss Lily Cow.
Here.
All right, if we can say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So you have to excuse me for a moment here. I'm going to go off script. Most may know already, but if you don't, then I want to indicate and acknowledge that we've lost one of our own on Wednesday of last week. Dwayne Burt, a longtime Shippensburg Area School District Director, suffered a heart attack and later that evening, surrounded by his family, passed away. For over a decade, for 14 years, Mr. Burt served on this board. He was a tireless advocate for the district, for the children in our schools, for the teacher, for the staff, for its facilities. I know that Mr. Burt was a mentor to many on this board and on previous boards. Besides his service on our board, Mr. Burt served several terms on the Joint Operating Committee of the Franklin County Career and Technology Center, including very recently as its chairperson. Dwayne was devoted to the principle of public service. This dedication was on display in public education, obviously, but also in his commitment to the JP Home. If you're not familiar with that organization, I encourage you to look it up. It was a surprise to me. It's not the furniture store, but something called the JP Home. And his chapter of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I don't believe anyone knew about until now, and his dedication to that organization was clearly tremendous. We want to acknowledge that his wife, a longtime Shippensburg Area School District first grade teacher, Luann Burt, we want to acknowledge her loss. He's survived as well by his 2 children and 3 grandchildren, and we mourn his passing with them. His voice of reason, his passion for furthering the educational impact of the district, his mentorship, his friendship, his dedication to finding a way forward will all be missed tremendously. So if you please join me in a moment of silence to commemorate or mourn his passing. As we begin our deliberations this evening, let us once again be reminded of our duty to represent all of the children of this school community, regardless of age, sex, race, or creed, and regardless of need or ability. This meeting is being live streamed and uploaded to the district's YouTube channel. We would like to now have a second moment of silence for several individuals. Dakota Rowles was a 2014 graduate. Nina June Kramer, who is the grandmother of Board Vice President Steph Eberly. Kimberly Martin Shope, a 1977 graduate. Margaret Bowers, 1944 graduate. Elman Ray Beach, thank you. 1957 graduate and former coach of Shippensburg Area Middle School football. Alfred Hutchinson, a graduate. Virginia Starliper, 1957 graduate. Leroy Buzz Martin, 1958 graduate. William Taylor, 1956 graduate. All right. It's time to approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
They are, sir. I handed it to you. Any other pile? Maybe this is it.
Not this. You know what, I forgot to mention right off the bat that the board met prior to this meeting in executive session at 6 o'clock to discuss personnel and property issues. So we wanted to mention that. There is one amendment to the board agenda. Thank you. Item number 6, under the discussion agenda, 6M. So sorry, the discussion agenda is item number 6. Item 6M, Shippensburg Area School District participation in Shippensburg Community Partnership. We've added Southampton Township, Franklin County, and Southampton Township, Cumberland County. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Is it helpful for me to say
It is.
who made the
Especially when there's a
motion?
tie.
I believe the motion was made by Mr. Boudreau and it was seconded by Ms. Eberly. Roll call?
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Buterball,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Aberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, we have two citizen comment periods. This first is for citizen comment periods regarding agenda items. If you've chosen to speak, and we have one person who indicated that they want to speak, just a reminder to address all comments to the board as a whole and make sure they are in the form of a statement. Questions will be taken under advisement. Responses to questions will be offered after due deliberation and will be provided by the superintendent at the direction of the board within a few days of the board meeting. You will be allowed 3 minutes for your comments. 5 minutes if prior written notification was made. Comments relative to private student matters or personnel issues should be directed to the appropriate school authority outside of this meeting. The presiding officer reserves the right to interrupt or terminate participants' statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Okay, so I think Darren Donovan, you wanted to speak?
Good evening. Darren Donovan, I'm a resident of Shippensburg Township. Wanted to speak a little bit this evening about 3 of the action agenda items. The Terrace Metrics Agreement, Care Solace Service Agreement, and Effective School Solutions LLC Agreement. Just wanted to give a little bit of input from what I've gathered. Doing a little bit of research, and looks like the district has spent about $300,000 in the month of November going towards cyber school. I feel like as a parent, bringing these kind of programs into our district, I feel like that's only going to push parents to pull their kids out of this district. I really don't feel like parents want to send their kids to school to be asked questions about how they feel, what their emotions are like. Public schools should be kept to giving kids a good education, and I think that's what most parents are sending their kids to this district for. Another question I have about it is I wonder how accurate these tests will be. I'm wondering if kids will actually answer them honestly. I know if I put myself in their shoes, if I'm handed questions, for example, like the Terrace Metrics surveys, I'm not going to take those seriously. And if I do have an issue, I'm certainly not going to give an honest answer on a piece of paper. Any students that I've talked to, the people they trust the most are actually their teachers. If I'm a member of this board, my solution for this is not bringing in these programs. It's actually getting behind our teachers and maybe trying to lower the student-to-teacher ratio. Give these teachers some more one-on-one time with their students so they can create relationships with them. Something that's real, not a piece of paper asking how they feel. Well, I'll end it with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding agenda items? Okay, seeing none. So first, we have student reports. And you know what? I'm just going to embarrass myself here. Will you please pronounce your name for me so that I can say it correctly?
Arian?
Ari?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Are you first?
On December 20th, the Center for Independent Living of Central PA hosted home care and CPR training where high school juniors and seniors could get free training and certifications for CPR and home care. A new craft club was organized in the high school for those interested in arts and crafts. Last month, the Student Council held a holiday card making activity where students could create holiday cards for medical residents in Shippensburg Health Center. The high school Holiday Spirit Week was held from the 19th to 22nd of December. On December 20th, juniors at the high school participated in a career planning session to discuss future careers and job interests. The high school coffee house had a show on the 19th of last month. The show consisted of student poetry and music featuring local artist Mike Kell. The FFA sold pinsettas throughout December for the holiday season. Keystone testing at the high school has begun starting last Thursday. Applications for the LFC Youth Leadership Program are open for high school freshmen. The PA State Police are holding a Hill Impact program from students from the ages of 15 to 18. The program teaches students about careers in law enforcement and legal codes. I will now be passing the rest of the report to Aryan Gonkar.
Thank you. Applications for the Associated Builders and Contractors Keystone Apprenticeship are now open to all students at the high school. Students will achieve a 10-hour OSHA card, a completion certificate, and an apprenticeship credits. The university has invited students to the first annual Diller Center Innovation Academy, where students have the opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship opportunities on January 27th to 28th. In the middle school Student Council held a book drive and collected over 100 books. These books were donated by SAM students and were then presented to Marcy Taylor, a member of the Shippensburg Chamber of Commerce, to be distributed to kids during a community Christmas party. A Sam's Holiday Hangout was hosted by the Sam's PTO on Friday, December 2nd, with approximately 200 students attending. Students stayed after school and played basketball and cornhole in the gym, danced in the cafeteria, and played board games in the lobby. After the holiday season, Sam's Student Council sold Santagrams during lunch and hosted a door decorating contest. Winning doors received a hot chocolate bar and cookies the week after break. At the middle school, there were new clubs such as the fishing club and the golfing club. On Wednesday, January 4th, there was a Sam's Supports SU basketball event at Shippensburg University Fieldhouse. Sam students were able to attend with an adult for free, playing knockout during halftime of both games, with food donated from the Shippensburg Subway. Winter sports have begun for both the middle school and high school.
Thank you, Ms. Kell and Mr. Gonkar. Appreciate those reports, and we appreciate having you here. All right, Franklin County Career and Technology Center report. Mr. Suiters, report. Are there any other board committee reports? I'm guessing not.
Want to say something about
Perhaps.
We didn't have none.
Ms. Wolfinger?
So the outreach committee did not meet, but I do want to keep you guys kind of up to date of where we're at with the executive director position. That the job description is now finalized and complete, and the Greyhound Foundation is getting ready to post that position sometime this week to begin the hiring process.
Excellent.
Can I ask, so you said the Greyhound Foundation will post it? So, or will the district post it?
So the position is technically a Greyhound Foundation employee. It will go onto their site first, and then it will be shared onto our district site.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Terrific. Any others? All right. Curriculum report. Ms. Woodall.
Good evening, everybody. You will notice under the discussion portion, I have the K-12 guidance plan to be board approved. This plan is a plan that has to be board approved every 5 years. All right, there we go. This plan has to be approved every 5 years by the school board. We do meet to revise it annually as the counseling squad, but every 5 years we do bring it forth to the school board. Just the mission statement of our guidance department. It's the mission of the district counseling department to provide equitable, comprehensive counseling program that fosters the academic, personal, social, and career needs through partnerships with teachers, parents, guardians, administrators, and community members to assist students in becoming productive members of society. I wanted to walk through why we do this plan. It first off is a state regulation from Title 22, Section 339, that all school districts and tech centers have these guidance plans in the state of Pennsylvania. The plan must include different strategies for students, educators, and parents to become aware of our local CTC. So Franklin County Career and Tech Center is our local CTC. Just what are we doing as a school system to allow students, parents, and guardians, and our own staff members to be aware of what the CTC offers. But then Pennsylvania has also taken it a step further. They don't necessarily define it in Title 22, Section 339, but just in general, how are we making students aware of career opportunities for them in high school, so when they graduate, they know what they want to do to explore those paths. And what this plan does is it makes sure that we are delivering the academic standards for the career education and work standards. So they are Pennsylvania Department of Education standards that, I'll be honest, up until probably 6 years ago, most districts didn't really look at. So this plan helps to ensure that our students are being taught these standards so they do graduate knowing what's going on around them career-wise. As you could hear from our student reports today, we're doing quite a bit with careers up here to try to get students prepared so they know what to do. They don't leave high school and say, oh, I'm going to go to college and spend 4 years in college and spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get a degree that they really didn't want. So that's our goal, is to prepare students for career after high school. So what this plan is laid out for, it's 70-something pages, so I'm just breaking down what it has in it, and this is a template that the state defined for us to complete. This is a similar format to what has been board approved previously, but the state has changed the template, so I just want to lay out what the template shows. So first off is the district counselors and the building assignments with counselor to student ratios. I do want to mention that most of our counselors have, at the secondary level, a 400-to-1 ratio. At the elementary level, 2 of them have a 500-to-1 ratio. Except for one counselor, we do a rotating role every 3 years for which counselor handles LORs, and those counselors have a 625-to-1 ratio. So they, even though LORs has graduate assistants that do a lot of the career development work, working with the students, our counselors are still the case managers over the students at LORs. Even, like, there are students, but when we rotate that, that gives that counselor an extra workload for 3 years. That's why we rotate it every 3 years, to try to spread the wealth. We also define the role of the counselor by using the American School Counselor Association standards of leader, advocate, collaborator, and systematic change agent. And then we have our job descriptions for our counseling professionals as well. listed across the 4 domains that we are evaluated on as non-teaching professional educators, which are planning and preparation, environment, delivery, and professional development. We have evidence in there of what it is that they do falling under each domain, and that's what it means by link to the state counselor evaluation. And then we also have the board-approved job descriptions for counselors for Shippensburg. Then pages 13 through 42, this is the meat and potatoes of our guidance plan, which is the program delivery. So again, the mission statement, which I started off discussing the mission statement. The program calendar and delivery. So we've laid out month by month what our counselors do and whether it falls under tier 1, which means all students get that instruction. Tier 2 is responsiveness, which means some students get it. And tier 3 is more individual type of services that they provide, which means individual students get it, as well as system support. So system support is things that they're doing as indirect services, which is still serving students, but not directly serving them. It's working on things like student attendance meetings and things like that. And then also there is a category, if you look through, that's non-council related duties, where we have calculated their time that they spend on non-council related activities, such as test prep, like preparing for PSSAs, SATs, Keystones, things to that extent, which aren't really something that should fall under a counselor role. I will say that most school districts use counselors for that, but when you follow the ASCA standards, it's not something that they recommend counselors spend their time doing. Then we have our curriculum action plan. So it lays out specific activities that we do at each grade level related to the career work and education standards, the materials that we use, the approximate dates of when these these lessons are delivered, and the number of students impacted, plus the person who's responsible. So then we have our annual goals. So every year, if you're a member of the Career Advisory Council, which all of you are invited to the Career Advisory Council in October and May. So in May, coming up this year and every year, we will present to the Career Advisory Council how we did on our program goals for this year, and then we'll seek feedback to create goals for next year. And then in October, we talk about these are our goals for this upcoming year. How can we either support you in the community business, and how can you support us? So it's a improvement cycle that goes on annually using our Career Advisory Council to make these goals. Then we have the academic career plan portfolio. So in grades 5, 8, and 11, students have to have evidence in a portfolio that they have been exposed to the career education and work standards. So I have an example of one of the portfolios in that plan, just showing, questions and things like that the students answer. Students can put their own materials in. Teachers have been prepared for, if you're doing something in class, like if you're in 8th grade and you're doing a resume writing in English, students can upload that into their digital portfolios. So evidence of their career, preparation for career and beyond high school. We discuss in there when we start our career portfolio, which we start our career portfolio in kindergarten. So we start talking about careers. Now, it's not saying in kindergarten, we're going to do, but just exposing kids to firefighters are people who do important things in our community. And, what are important jobs in our community? What are important skills? Like, why is it important to wake up and come to school? Because that's something that they're going to need for a job later on in life. They're going to be able to need to wake up and get to that job. Like I said, and then I have a sample portfolio. And then pages 59 through 66 discuss how we engage stakeholders in our guidance plan. So we break it up into the 5 stakeholder groups, which are students, parents, educators, business community, and post-secondary. We indicate how each stakeholder benefits from the program symbiotically. What I mean by that is, how does our guidance plan benefit from the stakeholder, and how does the stakeholder benefit from our guidance plan? So that symbiotic relationship. And then we look at the big ideas included that add to the education demonstrating the support for the plan. For example, one of our big ideas is to expose educators to different career opportunities in our area so they can bring it into the classroom. So for the past 2 years, during professional development days, our high school teachers have been doing field trips to local community or local businesses, so they can see what those businesses are looking for and they can integrate that into the curriculum. So, kids know there's career opportunities here in Shippensburg for them. Then we, again, have our K-12 Career Advisory Council, which has 48 members to it. And it talks about our meetings, which I already just discussed with you guys. And our career pathway awareness, so specifically, how are we letting students know, like, what are the agencies and resources that we have connections with in the different career pathways that there are. So we have listings of every business, agency, organization, publication that we've been utilizing to help not only further our knowledge base, but to help meet with students as well. And then the Career Tech and Technology Center strategies. These are strategies that we directly partner with the CTC to make students, parents, community members aware of the programs that are offered at the CTC. So that is a lot of information. This is a large document of information, but I wanted to give you guys a brief rundown of what it is. It's basically how are we preparing our students for career readiness, K to 12. That's the strategic plan behind that. So moving forward, annually, we continue to review and revise and build this program. Even in the time that I've been here, before right when I started, we didn't even have a co-op program or a work-based learning program here. We have a work-based learning program here now at the high school. We've developed career readiness at the middle school as a course that all kids go through to help build themselves up for exploring what their passions are K to 12. That way they have an idea, so when they go out into the world, they're not wasting time, their adult time, trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. I don't want to say wasting, but they're not spending extra time taking gap years to figure out what it is that they want to do. We want to review our advisory committee. We want to have more input from our career readiness and work-based learning teachers and add more business and community members. And we have a lot of educators on our board for the advisory committee. A lot of it's because it's our counseling staff, but we would like to cycle out some of the educators and get more community and more business members in there. And then continue with exposing our educators to career opportunities so they can continue integrating it with our curriculum. So questions?
I have one. Do we have a partnership with Volvo in any way for our students?
Yes.
So we have students there?
Yes, we have students at Volvo.
Okay. The question's been asked numerous times. You know how many we have?
It varies semester to semester. We've had as many as 5. We've had 0, just depending on what their interests are going through their, if they don't have an interest in some of the things that Volvo offers, we don't place them there.
So it's available to them?
It is available.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Woodall?
The only thing I want to mention is you talked about the ratios, and I found them, ironically, surprising that it kind of went timing-wise with an article that came out from PSBA with what they recommend. And in case you guys don't know, the recommended ratio is 250 to 1 for counselors to student. And so when you're talking 625 to 1 or 500 to 1, I think that this is part of, and I know we're going to have this conversation in a little while about, the whole Terrace metrics things and those kinds of things, but I think that this is part of the reason why our counselors are so challenged to be able to take care of the emotional needs of students and also try to balance out with the career readiness side of things as well. So is there any, I know if we had the magic wand, right, we could wave and just hire counselors. What's the solution there to that other than?
Honestly, personnel throughout the district, we have a lot of needs, so it's a discussion to have.
Yeah, 251 to 500 to 1 is a pretty stifling difference.
Those numbers are really big, and I don't know that a ton of schools hit that 250 mark. They're close to it, but the numbers that you heard for counselor-student ratio are indeed troubling.
Yeah, the 2021-2022 school year, the average in Pennsylvania was 415 to 1, to give some perspective.
Right. The counselors definitely have association has recommendations. Not many can meet that. those recommendations. I just want to thank Sherry for the heavy lift of this and the committee members, and also just really stress as we move forward as a district to a profile of a grad. All these things fit with that. Particularly, I'm excited to hear of our teachers being out in the field. I was at a training today where a district, was also intentionally doing that. That helps our teachers come back and engage our kids better and have more real life touch points of what actually needs to happen in workplaces. And I can't stress the need for, that work experience, so that, this plan, 339, everything that we do is targeted for when a senior walks across the stage. They have a plan and they know they've had experiences that allow them to take the next step. So thank you, Sherry.
And thanks to our awesome counselors, because as much as I'd like to say I did the heavy lift, they're the ones who do the heavy lift.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 3E, our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Goetz. I'd like to acknowledge, again, the generosity of our community. The Shippensburg Area Intermediate School faculty, staff, and students donation of dog toys and treats and gift cards to support the Shippensburg Area Intermediate School Facility Dog Program. That value was $562. An anonymous donor donating $200 gift cards for our high school PBIS. Shippensburg Middle School staff, monetary donations during the Thanksgiving brunch to support the facility dog, bringing in $500. I know they're having another cookout soon. The middle school, I think, is really trying hard to get a facility dog of their own, and I don't necessarily blame them. They can be great benefits. Shippensburg Area Middle School faculty and staff, monetary donations from the outdoor fundraiser, $450 in a dress down for a total of $1,320 towards the dog program. Nicholas Ryan Over Foundation and ADE for use at the Shippensburg Area District Athletic Department for use at practices and athletic events. That's a $1,050 donation. Thank you, Dr. Goetz.
Okay, so enrollment report then?
Yes, sir. So district total is 3,581 students. Not much change from the last report. The difference between that total and this time last year is a positive 168 students. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail now. At the next board meeting, EI is going to do all things enrollment and enrollment pictures for us to give us a pretty clear picture where we're headed, and they'll give all the details behind it.
You can just keep on going.
Yep. So facilities, there has been movement on facilities. So the board knows and the community knows, we are gearing up for work at the middle school, and there's already progress being made there. That is phase one of a number of projects that are going to be on the books here in the near future. Just some real quick updates there. Gas piping on the roof units has been roughed in. 90% of the flush valves installed. We recently had a meeting last week with the general contractors. They're going to take into consideration our school calendar, and they're going to coordinate with the admin. We've got to get these windows, which are a priority, moving on that project. And so, the priorities that we're going to stage first are windows, the back entrance, the mechanical room, and storage and other areas. So progress gearing up. You're going to be hearing more and I think seeing more in the near future. I do want to note that the parent loop, which is problematic, but we are working as part of this project to fix, is just received permission from the borough on 2 variances for parking for the parking lots. I just want to publicly thank the borough for approving those variances. We still have a couple more variances to come before them in the upcoming weeks, but we're confident that they will pass as well. Or I should say we're hopeful that they'll pass as well. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Moyer.
Good evening, everyone. Board team, it's great to see you all again. I appreciate the opportunity to update the board on two items. The first item is on your board agenda tonight under action. Item 6M that was mentioned previously. I highly recommend our formal recognition and support of the Shippensburg Community Information Partnership Program. For lack of a better term, and we always need acronyms in education, SCIP, S-C-I-P. The vision and purpose is to better coordinate scheduling of community events to provide easy access to information on activities mostly revolving around parks and recreation programs for adults as well as students in the community. Whether it be trips, other programs, we really want to do a better job of coordinating these things, make sure minimally we at least aren't scheduling over top of one another, and that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. I have spoken to our co-op teacher here, Krista Akers, regarding some opportunities for our students to assist, possibly with web design and some other things that they could get involved with. And I just think anytime we can offer mentorship opportunities, apprenticeships, and things like that, and it's a real win-win. Becky Wolfinger, as our community outreach person, has expressed a willingness to represent the district, as well as I'm going to recommend in the future that we at least have one of our school leaders attend with Becky with this really strong group of movers and shakers represented by the borough, the university, the school district here, and all the surrounding townships. So it's really an exciting initiative that's coming together. Part of that excitement, and I think the major part of that excitement, is we now have in the area a full-time Parks and Recreation Director. And it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Josh Mitchell to you tonight, and I think he would like to share with you just very briefly, but I wanted to make sure you could put a name with a face, and he was kind enough to agree to come this evening. Josh?
Hello. First, I'd like to send my condolences on behalf of the CPRA for the devastating loss to Mr. Burt. Well wishes to his family and loved ones. I'd like to start by saying I want to build relationships and strengthen partnerships while working in the best interest of the residents that make up this community. It's a community that I'm passionate about, prideful in, and devoted to. I'm excited to work together. You may recognize me. I've attended many of these meetings over the past few years. The girl I date has 2 boys in the district, and I've taken a personal interest in following what's happening even prior to my hiring. I hope to be a positive asset to the community. Who I am as a person is built on giving back and being helpful to others. I hope to bring fun and enjoyable activities to the area. I'm enthusiastic about the good I see here and look forward to getting to know all of you more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. By the way, I did warn this group of movers and shakers in the community about Becky a little bit, that she can be a little bit aggressive at times, and so they're prepared to deal with her, just so you know.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Secondly, I'd like to give you a brief update on where we're at working with the borough on partnering with the School Resource Officer Program. Let me just say, I'm very happy to report that we've had some very productive meetings with the borough, and I believe through these meetings and with the people that we've had involved, we haven't left any stone unturned. It really has been really good, and we've really gotten into the weeds on this. We do have a document currently that is with our legal counsels, both with the borough's legal counsel as well as with Chris Harris with Stock and Leader. We anticipate resolving any final concerns and having an agreement for you to study well before our next meeting. Some of the items that are on there, eventually we will make this public. But some of the items, because it does revolve around safety and security issues, we may redact that on the public component of this. But you will have the full document well before, so you can digest that information so that we can take action on that on January 23rd. Pending your approval, pending the board's approval or the Borough Council's approval on January 17th, we are hoping to and proposing that we would start late this month yet having boots on the ground, possibly. And our MOU or our agreement would run from late January 2023 through June 30th, 2025. In addition to the memorandum of understanding and the agreement and the performance responsibilities and whatnot, you also will have a detailed breakdown of the financial impact over that 2.5-year period. I would like to just briefly publicly thank Chief Scott Miller, Councilman Keith Schwartz, Borough Manager Kevin Plaster, our very own Dave Lindemuth, Stephanie Barnhart, AJ Norton, for doing a really good job of pulling this document together, and gotten a lot of positive feedback already from Stock and Leader. And as soon as we hear back from the borough and I can get something to you, we plan to do that. And frankly, I'm really excited about getting boots on the ground, maybe even later this month yet. So that's the update. And at this point, I think I'm turning things over to something really exciting, the audit report by Tina.
Usually the driest part of the meeting, right? During your finances. Okay. I'm Tina Geip, a manager at Boyer and Ritter, and one of the members of the engagement team that conducted the annual audit of the district. I'd like to start by thanking the board for the opportunity to perform the district's annual audit for the year ended for the year ended June 30, 2022. Also like to acknowledge Christy, Joanne, and the rest of the district staff involved for their efforts throughout the year and for their work in preparation for the audit. You should have received 2 documents from us. One's a small 4-page document, what we call is the required communications letter. This letter is used to inform the board of significant matters related to the annual audit. A few items of note are that the accounting estimates is your depreciation expense, net pension liability, other post-employment benefits or OPEB, and your compensated absences. The significant financial statement disclosures being deposits and investments, capital assets, long-term obligations, defined benefit plan, OPEB benefits, commitments, subsequent events, and we'll look at each of those in a moment. There were audit adjustments made to the trial balance presented to us to begin the audit, but none of those adjustments had any significant effect on the district's regular financial reporting process. This signifies that the financial information that is provided to the school board on a regular basis is accurate and reliable source of information for your decision-making processes. The larger document being the financial report as of June 30, 2022 is next. Our engagement can be divided into 2 separate yet overlapping audits. We perform a financial audit and a compliance audit of the district. Within that document, there are 3 independent auditors' reports for which we as the district's auditors are responsible for. The first page after the table of contents is the independent auditor's reports over the financial statements. And you will notice that it looks slightly different than it has in years past. AICPA issued a statement on auditing standards, which was effective for this year, that changed the look of that report. It totally threw all the paragraphs into different order, moving the auditor's opinion to the very top. When you first start reading, you read what we audited, followed by our opinion. And that opinion starts out by saying, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to in the above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district. This is an unmodified opinion. highest and best opinion that an auditor can provide. It's the type of opinion that your bondholders, the federal and state oversight agencies, and your public in general expect to see. Report identifies that there is an emphasis of matter section for the adoption of GASB 87 for leases this year. Also goes through management's responsibility for the audit as well as the auditor's responsibility. And our responsibility is to express opinions on those financial statements based on our audit procedures. Audit standards require us to perform procedures to obtain reasonable assurance that those financial statements are free of material misstatement. To arrive at that conclusion, we perform various auditing procedures which follow an approach that focuses on materiality and risk associated with the items reported in those financial statements. The next section is management's discussion analysis, beginning on page 4. That section of the report is prepared by management, summarizes the financial position for the fiscal year and the relevant conditions that occurred throughout the year that led to those results. Also contains comparative information, which is very important because the rest of the audit report is just a single year, so it lets you see right in one section what the 2-year change looked like. Then there's statements that we call the government-wide. Those statements reflect the overall picture of the district using accounting methods similar to those used in private sector. Those statements account for your long-term assets and liabilities, being your capital assets, your bonds, your pension and OPEB liabilities. And in that first statement on pages 18, 19, it does show that you have an overall negative net position of $24 million, which is predominantly tied to the PSERS pension and your OPEB liabilities. And those two numbers are $65 million. So you wipe those things away, it makes your numbers look significantly cleaner. Beginning on page 21 of your fund financial statements, they report the daily activities of the district operations through your various funds, equivalent to the information as prepared by the business office. Page 25 is your budget to actual report. I just wanted to simply bring out that you budgeted for a loss of $1.1 million last year. However, you ended the year with a $3.1 million income, and that is predominantly tied to property taxes, earned income taxes, and the nice chunk of transfer taxes you received last year. Also, the food service fund on page 27 is the income statement for them. It did show a positive outcome this year, first for quite a while. And this is due to the additional funding you receive from the federal government. A few notes to draw attention to on page 40 are your new accounting pronouncements. Those that were adopted this year, the most significant is GASB 87 for leases. And it also goes through those that are coming up with the years that they will be implemented. Page 50. It's note 10, your long-term obligations. This includes the new obligation for the new bond as well as the implementation of that lease standard. So it now shows all your leases with a payable and what you're due in 1 year, everything, exactly the way your bonds are reported in the financial statements. Note 11 on page 53 details your general fund balance obligations, so that, designations, not obligations, I'm sorry. So the way that you have set aside your restricted, your committed, your assigned fund balances are all detailed there and what you have set funds aside for the future. The last two notes, note 19 and 20, are your significant commitments. The only commitment there that was noted, carried over, was the beginning phases of the middle school construction project, as well as note 20, those significant commitments for major capital expenditures that you made after June 30th, up through the date of the auditor's report. So there were several there that were reported. Then the back half of the report includes the balance of the auditor's reports that we prepare. So we are required to report in accordance with uniform guidance and government auditing standards. This is your compliance audit or your single audit. Because the district received and spent approximately $6.4 million of federal funds, we're required to perform that single audit. And there are two separate sets of regulations we must follow. So that we prepare two separate independent auditors' reports. The first one's on page 86. And this report is issued in accordance with government auditing standards. We're pleased to report that our testing did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting, nor did we identify any instances of noncompliance material to those financial statements. A few pages later is the second report. This is in accordance with uniform guidance. This report describes the scope of our audit relating to the major federal programs selected for testing. This year, we selected the Education Stabilization Fund, or your ESSER dollars, Title I, and the Emergency Connectivity Fund. So we had 3 different programs we did this year. Once again, we were able to report that the district received an unmodified opinion stating that it was compliant in all material respects with the federal regulations governing those major federal programs. Additionally, we did not identify any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies in control over compliance of those programs. Again, I'd like to thank the school board and the district's management team for their time tonight. If you have any questions, I can answer them or reach out through my email or through Christy, and we will gladly attempt to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guy. All right, I want to back up a minute and thank Dr. Moyer for his presentation. Appreciate that. And Josh, we're very happy to meet you. I'm sorry, I missed your last name. Were you?
Mitchell.
Mitchell? Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for being here. We appreciate that. We appreciate getting to know you and expect a future productive collaborative relationship. All right, our last bit under the superintendent report, I believe, is our budget and finance update. Ms. Lentz.
Yes,
I believe
good
that's
evening.
yours.
So I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to highlight a little bit more that Mrs. Geit talked to you about this evening. We're going to go over a very high level of our 21-22 year-end results. We're also going to talk about the Act 1 index, look at our historical millage rates, and talk about the first decision the board is going to need to make with the 23-24 budget process. Sherry, sorry, you can move forward past that slide. Okay, so this is looking at our year-end results from the 21-22 fiscal year for the general fund only. So as you can see, total revenues came in above our projections or higher than anticipated by just shy of $3.1 million. Most of that came in our local resources. There was a number of local revenue resources that came in higher than anticipated. Some of those being our current real estate taxes. The collection rate came in higher than what we had budgeted, which brought in more real estate taxes. Our interim real estate taxes remained high again this year. So we're seeing a lot of the interim builds going on. Our earned income tax is also trending higher than it has been in the past. Our realty transfer tax was extremely high this year. We had a couple large warehouses sell, so that brought in a lot of money. And we're still seeing just the volume of real estate sales remain high. We don't anticipate that to continue, though, in the future. And then also under local revenue sources, we did get in additional IDEA money, so that was unanticipated when we put the budget together. And then under the state resources revenues, we received in about 129,000 more than projected, and that came because of our basic ed and special education funding came in higher than what we anticipated, because we all know very rarely does the state pass their budget before we have to pass ours. So we always have a guessing game on those figures. And then as for federal sources, they came in below what we anticipated, mainly because of the reductions that we continue to see in Title I. And then we always guess at what we're going to budget for ESSER II, so we budgeted more revenue than what we ended up spending that year. And then under expenditures, you can see that came in under budget by about $1 million. And mainly that is because of our debt service. I'm jumping down to our debt service line. As we all know, we continue to budget level debt service payments of about $3.5 million, but we have not borrowed all those funds. So we were able to put about $2 million back in the, I'm going to say in the budget, because we have not spent all that money for debt service. However, there is some areas in the budget that we did over-expend in terms of budgeting. So the first one you can see in terms of instruction, we over-budgeted. We came in over budget by about $131,000. And that's due to cyber charter schools, professional education services paid to the IU, and our substitute costs coming in higher than anticipated. And then for our support services, we came in over budget by about $789,000. That's due to, there was a couple projects that we paid for out of fund balance. So we don't budget those funds, but when we pay for them, the expenditures show up on our books. So we had done the next gen building automation system upgrade at James Byrd Nancy Grayson and the intermediate school. Our pupil transportation services came in over budget, and we also received a grant from the emergency connectivity funding for Chromebooks. So that grant money came in after we had done our budget. So it looks like we overexpended because we hadn't anticipated that purchase as well with grant funds. And then under the operation of non-instructional services, we came in over budget of about $62,000, and we had our supplemental salaries and benefits came in above budget, and we also out of fund balance purchased weight room equipment. So again, that we don't budget for that purchase, but the expense shows up on our books. And then under the facilities acquisition, construction, and improvement, we came in over budget by $16,000 approximately. And again, we had some unbudgeted expenditures for stadium engineering survey fees. So then back up, Sherry. As Mrs. Geip had mentioned, overall, we were able to add just over $3.1 million into our fund balance. So our revenues came in higher than expenditures by $3.1 million. So I won't go over every line item on this slide, but as Mrs. Geip had shared within the financial statements, this is also just a look at our fund balance and the different categories of how we have our fund balance designated for different purposes. So in the first column, you can see what our actual fund balance was as of the 2021 school year. So that's the first column with dollar figures in it. And overall, we had a fund balance of just shy of $12 million. And then in column 2, you can see the amounts of fund balance that we used during last fiscal year, during the 21-22 fiscal year. So we used about $663,000 of our fund balance. But then, as we said, we were able to add approximately $3.1 million to our fund balance along with the amount that we've used. So we were able to redistribute $3.8 million in our fund balance. So that is column number 3. It's the proposed distribution. So when you take column 1, less column 2, add column 3, that brings us to column 4. That brings us to our actual fund balance as we ended the 21-22 school year. So you can see we ended the 21-22 school year with about $15.1 million in our general fund balance. I won't go over every category, but you can see that we have money set aside for future PSERS retirement increases. We have money set aside to phase in our new 7th grade teachers. We still have money set aside for the flagship Proud projects. We did spend everything that we set aside for the auditorium. There's approximately, I think, 10,000 left to complete the high school front entrance, and then the remainder of that is for the stadium. We have money set aside for capital technology outlays. Previously, the board had put money aside to repay future debt on our ESCO project, but in consultation with our financial advisors, they indicated that if we have needs within the district, it would be better to spend on capital projects than to repay our debt, as we have borrowed at very low interest rates. And then we have some money set aside for maintenance capital outlays, curriculum materials, district safety, a change in financial and personnel software, special ed curriculum, and then our buildings are able to keep any leftover monies they have, and then brings us down to the last line item of unassigned fund balance. And then in column 5, you can see what we had proposed to use during this current school year. I will say that does not capture everything, as we have asked the board since July 1 to use some fund balance for other purposes, but through the budget process, we had set aside to use $2.6 million of our fund balance. So taking that into account, that comes to our last column, which estimates what our fund balance will be as of the end of this fiscal year, and we're looking at approximately $12.5 million in our fund balance. So again, as you can see, over the last several years, Shippensburg School District has been able to maintain a healthy fund balance, not only to assist for future capital outlays, but there's always a cushion there for any unanticipated hardships. For example, we did have a year where the state almost took a whole year to approve their budget, and our fund balance was able to carry us through without having to borrow any additional funds. And then the last line you see on there is our capital reserve fund. We maintain a very small amount in our capital reserve. We have approximately $245,000 in our capital reserve fund. All right, so just a quick reminder of the AC-1 index. The AC-1 index is what is used to determine for school districts to increase their their real estate tax millage rates. So the AC-1 does not include any PDE referendums or voter referendum approvals. And again, just a reminder, the base index is calculated by averaging the percent increases in the Pennsylvania state-wide average weekly wage and the federal employment cost index for elementary and secondary schools. Keep in mind that school districts that have a market value personal aid ratio above 4.0, those school districts can receive adjusted AC-1 index. So that's your base index times by the sum of 0.75, and then taking in your market value personal aid ratio. So for the current school year, the current budget, 22-23, the AC-1 index, the adjusted AC-1 index for Shippensburg was 4.5%. PDE has certified the 23-24 AC-1 index, and for Shippensburg, we receive an adjusted index because our market value aid ratio is above 0.0, and our adjusted index will be 5.4%. Again, just some more information surrounding the AC-1 index. The top chart provides a historical overview of the base index. As you can see, again, I won't read all the numbers, but as you can see, for a number of years, the base index hovered around 2.5%. Most recently, it has increased slowly. We are anticipating, again, as I had shared, that the AC-1 index will increase again for the 23-24 school year. And then the below chart shows the future projections of the base index. And you can see for the 24-25 school year, it's anticipated to slowly rise, and then eventually it will drop off, but at a slow pace, not at a alarming rate. So school districts will be able to sustain a higher AC-1 index for the next few years. All right, so we have shared this chart before, but we have modified this a little bit. This is Shippensburg's historical tax rate increases since the implementation of the Act 1 index. Prior to the 2007-8 school year, school districts actually had the ability to increase taxes to whatever rate they wanted. They were not bound by any maximum index. However, then Act 1 was implemented, and from the 2007-8 fiscal year forward, we were bound by an index set by PDE, and as explained in the previous slides. So the first column is, of course, the year. The second column tells you what we did during that year, if we increased taxes to the index, if there was no tax increase, or if there's a partial tax increase. The third column shows the lost revenue for that fiscal year. When we didn't increase taxes to the index. The next column shows you the cumulative revenue that we lost. And then if you take a look down at the last line, the estimated compounded revenue loss from this since 2007-8 is approximately $28.6 million to Shippensburg School District.
So that's a very long time, and that's assuming that the previous boards would raise it to the maximum number, which is probably not realistic throughout. And this isn't about pointing fingers at previous boards. They made the decisions they made in the time that were best in that situation. But I think it is important to know the impact when we have and provide some context to the board on how the past influences and has kind of set this board up and where we are right now. Obviously, that $28 million is a significant number over that span of time, and not that we would have had it all, but it certainly would have changed the complexion of the district. And I think as we move into the budget season, it's important that this board is thinking about setting future boards up for success, and that we're sustainable moving forward. So thank you.
Can I just add a comment there? Because I do think it's really important for the community to hear that, because I think a lot of times we get compared to other school districts. Why can this district do it and we can't? And, how can they afford this and we can't? Well, this exactly is the reason why we have not been able to afford to do all of the capital projects that we all want to be able to accomplish. Where other districts have done the index year after year after year since they started tracking it. So, $28 million is a huge amount of money. And Christy, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in my previous district, I think, looking at our financials, we have a healthy fund balance, but we obviously have a lot of needs. In my estimation, and I think Christy could probably, support this better, we're in really solid financial shape right now, but that's only because we're paying ourselves, but we will be paying someone else for the facilities that we build. And if you remember that slide, there were a number of areas that were negative that were offset because that's going to shift at some point. That big, blanket coverall safety net is going to be going to facilities. So just important to think about. I think the rest of my thought, to your point, Mrs. Wolfinger, I came from a district that had 1,000 less students and has a $1 million larger budget. Just again to add context to where we are.
Okay, so that brings us to the board is going to need to make the first budget decision at the January 23rd meeting. And it will be either to pass a resolution to reside within the Act 1 index for our real estate tax increase, or adopt a preliminary budget and apply for any applicable referendum exceptions. So PDE has 4 available referendum exceptions. However, Shippensburg School District does not and has not qualified for the 2 referendums surrounding school construction. However, in the past, it has fluctuated from year to year if we are allowed to apply for the retirement and/or the special education exceptions. So for the retirement for the upcoming school year, I am not projecting that SASD will qualify for this. However, for our special education expenditures, we have seemed to spend more in special education, as we know those costs continue to increase. And my preliminary calculations say we do qualify for this, and we would be able to raise taxes above the index and get an additional $883,366 for special education expenditures.
Christie, excuse me, why don't we qualify for school construction?
So the grandfather debt, what that says is that when we would have borrowed in the past, if our debt service payments were structured that they increased year over year, so, maybe this year we pay $1 million, next year we pay 1.2 million, we could then apply for that referendum exception, but we can't because our debt service has always been declining. And it has to be that way. Like, you can't, the state has changed that you cannot have increasing debt service payments. They have to be declining debt service payments.
So no one can ever get, no school district can ever get this?
We will never qualify for these.
Because it's a grandfathered thing, so,
Right.
so if you were borrowing money in this old way that wasn't really a good way, then the state is saying you could use that exception to raise property taxes to fund it. But now they don't allow school districts to borrow in that way anymore, so you wouldn't qualify.
Okay.
Mrs. Woodall, can you go to the next slide? So then, this is just the calculation if you wanted to see how the special education referendum exception is calculated. It just compares our annual financial report information from the 2021 school year to the 21-22 school year. And obviously, we have had an increase in our special education expenditures. And it brings us down to, again, what I shared with you on the previous slide, that we would be eligible to receive an additional $883,000 in special education expenditures. As for the retirement exception, again, I don't have a preliminary budget rolled forward, but I am not projecting that we will qualify for this exception because last year our PSERS rate had went up about 0.5%, and we didn't qualify last year. But I am happy to report, even though we can't qualify for the retirement exception, I am pleased to say that the PSERS employer contribution rate that has been certified for the 23-24 school year has been set at 34%, which is a decrease of 1.26% from the 22-23 fiscal year. So this is the first time in a long time that we've seen a decrease in the PSERS employer contribution rate. Even though it's small, we'll take any decrease. So then what does that mean for the district? Again, I shared that our Act 1 index is at 5.4%. If you would apply for the referendum exception, that would make the increase on taxpayers 8.63%. So then, in the end, it's our recommendation, although we could certainly use the $883,000, we have many needs in the district, it is our recommendation that the board pass a resolution to reside within the Act 1 index for the 23-24 budget. And I'll open it up I don't know, Mr. August, do you have anything else you want to?
No, I mean, I think that previous chart talks about lost ground, certainly I don't believe the administration would recommend trying to close that gap in any 1 year. So staying within even though our expenditures of special education are tremendous, we recommend staying within that resolution in that index.
We'll open up if there's any board questions or discussion.
So just to reiterate and remind, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so the decision here is that in our next meeting, we will have to decide whether we're going to that if there is to be a tax increase, it will remain within the index or be up to the index. We don't have to decide if there will be a tax increase or how much that tax increase will be. We are just deciding that we will limit ourselves to the index. If we do not want to limit ourselves to the index and want to go beyond that, then we have to move a different direction in order to, apply for that exception. So that's
staying within the index.
just wanted to be clear about what the decision is that we'll be making in our next meeting.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Christy.
All right, I believe that concludes the superintendent's report. So, thank you, superintendent and friends. Next up is the consent agenda. First, item 4A, the approval of minutes. We recommend the approval of the minutes as presented and attached from the December 5th, 2022 reorganization and planning action meetings. Item 4B is the finance report. There are a number of reports there that are listed in the agenda, and for the sake of time, I am not going to read all of those. Item 4C, the several policies for second reading and approval. These are policies that showed up on the discussion agenda in December. Policy number 011, Principles for Governorship and Leadership, which has been revised. Policy number 103, which has to do with discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting students, which has been revised. Policy number 624, taxable fringe benefits, which is a new policy. Policy number 625, federal fiscal compliance, which is a revised policy. And policy number 916 regarding volunteers, which is revised. Item 4D is Sunday use of facilities request. The high school softball coach has requested the use of auxiliary and high school gyms on Sunday, January 29th and February 5th, 2023 to hold a youth softball clinic from noon to 4 p.m. The principal has approved this date. However, any Sunday use of district facilities must be approved by the school board. Administration recommends the approval of the two Sunday requests. Item 4E, School District Education Foundation donation for grades K through 3. Shippensburg Area School District Educational Foundation is requesting authorization to purchase books for students in grades K through 3 for home reading. Funding is through the EITC grant. The amount of the donation is just under $13,000. Pursuant to board policy and the administrative procedure, any gift over $2,500 must be accepted by the Board of School Directors. Administration recommends that the Board of Directors accept this donation. Item 4F, Educational Foundation donation for the Smooth Sailing Program, decodable readers. Shippensburg Area School District Education Foundation is requesting authorization to purchase decodable readables for the readers for the Smooth Sailing Program. Funding is through the EITC grant. The amount of donation, $6,624. Again, pursuant to board policy, such a gift must be approved by the Board of Directors. 4G is another Educational Foundation donation requesting authorization. The District Educational Foundation is requesting authorization to purchase 35 iPads for the Smooth Sailing Program. Amount of the donation is $11,840. And then item 4H regarding personnel. There are so many people here, fabulous employees who have been hired and fabulous employees who have moved on. And I am not going to read all of these names, but they are all listed in the agenda if you wish to review them. And I'd like to stop at that point. So I'll now entertain a motion to approve items 4A through 4H.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Wolfinger and seconded by Mr. Ruba. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Mark Buterball.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 4I is also related to personnel. Administration recommends the approval of the following resignation. Bethany A. Bridges, Assistant Supervisor of Special Education at Shippensburg Area School District, effective February 12th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve item 4I?
Motion to approve with regret.
Motion made by Mr. Buterbaugh,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Suiters. Any discussion?
I would just like to thank Bethany for her service in the short amount of time. It's been tremendous to work with her, and her loss is a big one for us, but a huge opportunity for her in another district in a higher position.
We can say no, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Buterball,
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, on to the action agenda. Item 5A is a request to purchase new Greyhound swimming diving record board. Administration recommends the approval of the request by the Sashus Athletic Committee to replace the 2 record boards in the high school pool area with 1 new Greyhound swimming and diving record board. The new board will be made by Team Fitz Graphics, the same company who made the new banners in the gym and the pool. The size of the new board is 20 by 10 feet, 20 feet by 10 feet, and the cost is approximately $4,570. The price does not include installation. We feel our maintenance team could remove the 2 old boards at the pool and put up the new one. Entire cost of the project will be paid for by funds out of the Sashus Athletic Committee donation account. Is there a motion to approve item 5A?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger.
Second.
Second by Mr. Suiters. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Butterball,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Item 5B, wireless communication services equipment through AT&T Corp. The administration recommends the approval of the attached contract with AT&T to reduce the cost of hotspots. The district provides hotspots to families that do not have internet access, and the numbers are increasing. Currently, the district pays $40 a month per hotspot, and this contract would reduce the cost to $15 per month per hotspot. Is there a motion to approve item 5A?
So moved.
Mr. Buterbaugh,
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Suiters. Is there a discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Buterball,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5C, purchase of services agreement with Woods Services Incorporated. Woods Services operates a residential treatment facility. The attached proposal is for 1 district student placement from October 17th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This admission is an approved 4010 funded slot, which means that the tuition will be fully or partially funded by the state. The estimated cost to the district for an educational, am I in the right spot? Yes. One-to-one aid is $35,610, which comes out to $234 per day for 165 days. Administration recommends the approval of the agreement for the remainder of the 22-23 school year. Is there a motion to approve item 5C?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Buterbaugh and seconded by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Mark Buterball,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5D, change in part-time position at Grace B. Lurs University Elementary School. The administration recommends the position of part-time cashier kitchen helper at Grace B. Lurs University Elementary School change from a 3.5-hour per day, 180 days per year position to a part-time cashier kitchen helper classroom assistant at Grace B. Lurs Elementary School for 4.5 hours per day for 180 days per year. Is there a motion to approve item 5D?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger.
Fred Scott, second.
Fred Scott, second. Sorry, discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yeah.
Mr. Mark Buterball,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5E, escrow and security agreement with the Borough of Shippensburg. Administration recommends the approval of the attached escrow and security agreement with the Borough of Shippensburg as part of the middle school construction project for the addition of new classrooms and renovation expansion of the cafeteria. These documents have been reviewed and approved by our legal counsel. Is there a motion to approve 5E?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Suiters, or motion made by Mr. Suiters. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Mark Ruderball.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5F, the Terrace Metrics Agreement. Shippensburg Area School District and the SCRC are partnering together to measure and monitor the rising behavioral and mental health needs within the district. SCRC applied for a grant and was awarded monies to purchase Terrace Metrics to utilize in the 22-23 school year. Terrace Metrics is the program that will measure and monitor the mental health through a universal mental health screener. For the first year, students in grades 4, 7, and 9 would participate, or parents, guardians can choose to opt out. Based on the results, school staff and, if board approved, Care Solace will link students to continued care and mental health supports. Administration recommends the approval of the attached Terrace Metrics Agreement. Is there a motion to approve item 5F?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Scott. Is there a second? Unfortunately, I cannot make the second. Is there no second for the motion? If there is not a second, then the motion die. It's a rather terrible word to use for what? Okay. The motion is dead. Item 5G, Care Solace Service Agreement. I'm not sure, Mr. August, do we want to continue with the others if we don't have item 5F approved?
If Care Solace is really linked to the approval of Terrace Metrics, and at this point, I would say no.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not sure that it makes sense to have a motion for item 5G in that case. But the item 5H, that stands alone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 5H, Effective School Solutions Agreement. Administration recommends the approval of the attached agreement with Effective School Solutions, ESS, to provide therapeutic mental health services through licensed professionals to district students enrolled in the Shippensburg Area Intermediate School or the Shippensburg Area High School. Is there a motion to approve item 5H?
Motion to approve.
A motion made by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there a second?
Ed Scott, second.
Fred Scott, seconded by Fred Scott. Is there discussion?
I'd just like to maybe note, when we're talking about bringing in more outside agencies to provide mental health services, the cost is great, $102,000. When we are looking at numbers, even just for guidance counselors.
So just so the board's aware,
These-
this first year would be funded through grant monies, and allow us to, if approved, evaluate the effectiveness and decide if we, wanted to continue with that service.
Can you explain to the board again what the services that ESS offers? Because I do think there's some validity to it.
So we currently have ALIF services, mental health services that come in and are basically meet our students here. That is done through insurance and navigated through that. There is a substantial wait list to be on or seen with an ALIF counselor. This is a supplemental that would serve approximately 15 additional students. Those students would be those that don't have insurance.
So, from my understanding, from reading through the contract, like they need a room, they need the privacy, it needs to lock, the file cabinets, where would they be located?
We don't have a spot designated yet. It's not uncommon for outside groups to come in. And, we do have the space that we can store those secure files, in one of those buildings or even at the district office if we needed to.
And really, their main role is going to be to connect parents to resources.
No, ma'am, that's
No?
Care Solace.
Okay.
So this is the actual physical counselor coming
Okay.
to work with students.
I mean, everybody, excuse me, everybody I see and everything on TV, they talk about the mental health of our students because of what's going on. Whatever it takes, in my opinion, money's nice, but our children are much more important. So if we need to hire more guidance counselors or bring in services to help each and every child and parent, I don't see as a downside.
To Ms. Eberly's point, it is rather expensive for a relatively small number. The upside to this and why the administration is recommending it is that we're not spending any district money for this trial year. It may be that, to your point, it is something that the district wants to continue with this group, or we would have the option to move in another direction to get additional support. So it's not a zero-sum game. This is a first swipe at that with little or no cost to the district.
All right, any more discussion, questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Mark Buterball.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. All right, so we have a discussion agenda. We have several items through the discussion agenda. I'm going to kind of briefly go through these things, but I also want to give ample time for any of them if there is discussion points that the board wants to bring up. Of course, discussion items come up on the action agenda in our next meeting. Item 6A, Franklin County Career and Technical Center appointments to the Joint Operating Committee. The Board of School Directors Board of School Directors need to be appointed to represent the district on the Franklin County Career and Technical Center Joint Operating Committee. The term on the committee is for 3 years, and the current members have completed their term. So it's worth pointing out here that Charlie Suiters and Dwayne Burt both have served for the past 3 years. I think of both of those have done previous stints as well. Mr. Jim Bard has also served for 2 years and then a third year as the alternate. Want to thank them for their service. If you have interest in being one of the representatives to the Franklin County Career and Technical Center, then let's talk. It seems to make sense to have a vote, although past practice it seems like we've done different things. It's the preference to sort of have this in the minutes as to who is appointed. So we'll, the board will appoint two individuals and an alternate in the next meeting. So if you have any questions or interest in that, please, talk to me, talk to Charlie or Jim about their service, or talk to Mr. August. Any questions or comments on that item? All right, item 6B, Pennsylvania School Board Association liaison appointment. PSBA recommends the district appoint a PSBA liaison who is a member of the school board. The school board member will serve a significant role as a key facilitator between the PSBA and board members by creating a direct communication channel and ensuring all essential information from PSBA is communicated. There are no weekly meeting expectations. However, PSBA extends an invitation to the liaison should they wish to attend their weekly Buzz Zoom sessions. PSBA also provides an exclusive e-newsletter, Liaison Insider, to all liaisons. Is there any discussions or questions about this item?
Is this something new?
No.
Did we have, who was the liaison for the last year?
Who was
'Cause
late?
I've never heard an update from it.
I don't remember.
I don't know the answer to that question. It looks like nobody knows the.
No.
Okay.
I remember seeing this before, and I'm not sure that we've.
Arlen Reed was one. Arlen Reed was one. Yep, he was here. That's the only one I can remember.
Yeah.
For my time.
Well, an opportunity.
Yes.
Item 6C is regarding the 23-24 district calendar. I'll let you review that. Are there any questions on that item? Item 6D is the next-gen automation proposal. Administration recommends the approval of the attached proposal with next-gen automation to replace Siemens building automated controls in the middle school. Work would be started when the students are out of school for summer break. The cost of the project is just under $800,000 and will come out of the designated fund balance for future debt repay capital projects. Are there any questions, comments, discussion on that item?
Just as a reminder to the board, this was a intentional pullout from the middle school project so that we could save some money by doing it ourselves and having aligned systems across our buildings. So it shouldn't come as a surprise. That is a big number, but we would be paying more within the current middle school project without pulling it out.
I believe that the estimated cost savings, correct me if I was wrong, was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000.
I think the low end was $30,000 at least, or more, based on my talk with Site Logic and Chad.
All right, perhaps I misheard.
And then should you approve this, I think then the only other building that will need to be done will be the high school.
Right, because we have already completed the next-gen automation in the other, in our elementary schools. All right, item 6E, approval for additional ESL position. Administration's recommending the approval for one full-time ESL teaching position. So I believe we've been contracting these services through the Capital Area Intermediate Unit, but there's been difficulty with staffing, and we have several students in need of ESL, and this proposal is to bring one position on staff. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Our numbers have increased from 2 years ago being 54 ELL students to, the last time I checked, 129. So that's a significant jump. And those students need services that we are required to provide. We've already budgeted some monies to get services from the IU. They're not able to help us as much as we would like. So this position, which we believe will serve a long-term need, is required. You know, I don't love bringing forth positions in the middle of the year, but you know, we're kind of a point where we have to provide services, and we're kind of at a breaking point with what we have.
Do we have somebody? Do we have people in line, or are we just floating out and hoping we get?
So there are some. There's at least one candidate that we're potentially talking to or has expressed interest. Yeah, that's all I'll say about it right now.
Bill, do we have a full-time ESL teacher in Shippensburg now? Would this be our second, or do we do it all through the intermediate unit?
So we currently have one we just hired this year as our own ESL teacher. We actually brought her in from the intermediate unit, so
Oh, that's right.
I coached
That's
her from
right.
the IU. But we still have 1.5 through the IU. Originally, I tried to get that half-time, more hours, but she's supporting other districts within, and the IU can't meet our needs, which is why we're bringing in another one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, item 6F, Franklin County Special Education Consortium, the SOAR program. Item is pending final review from the district solicitor, but administration recommends the approval of the attached MOU and agreement for the SOAR program. I don't know, do you want to talk briefly about the SOAR program?
Sure. If you remember, the SOAR program is a consortium effort by the Franklin County Schools to have an alternative placement for students who are struggling in the regular ed setting and need some time to get back on track. The district would be open to having 4 slots. There's currently a plan for 15 slots. with the various districts listed in the MOU, each buying certain slots. The reason why it's a consortium and the first of its nature is Shippensburg will be the financial guarantor, and that's a dangerous word, I know, but we're basically going to be the middleman pass-through. And so much like other arrangements that we have with other districts, we buy and trade slots, and we're only responsible for those 4 slots, and we'll be billing other districts. So we're not going to be on the hook for more slots than we've required. It's a lot of moving parts to it because there's a lot of districts involved. So each one needs to be approved separately, and we're finishing up those minor tweaks to the document. There was a bit of a conflict of interest with our attorney. It represents both parties, so we had to kind of maneuver around that, which wasn't too bad, but did delay it a little bit.
Do we already have one with Cumberland County as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is just a
This
new
is
one.
the Franklin County
the Franklin
version
side, okay.
of a different sort.
All righty. Item 6G, updates to Act 93 job descriptions. There's 2 job descriptions that are updated, and I really want to make a joke here, but I probably shouldn't. Anyway, these changes in titles, which you can read, are more reflective of the current job responsibilities associated with these positions. Item 6H, policies for discussion. So the following attached policies are being presented for first read and discussion. So the first is policy number 6 on meetings, which is revised. Policy 701.1, facilities naming, which is a revised policy, and policy 903, public participation in board meetings. I believe all of these policies have sort of made their way through policy committee and now are making it onto the discussion agenda. Is there any questions or comments about these policy revisions?
What is the meetings revised specifically doing?
I
I have a copy here. Mark, if
I'm
you
trying to
wanna look at it.
remember. Steph, do you remember?
I have my handy.
I guess what I want to know is what is the purpose?
I think it had to do with, I hesitate to even remember, but issues regarding public comment, trying to facilitate that a bit.
Stricken on it.
Ms. Eberly is going to educate you.
I'm going to see if I can find.
I tell you, we're going to come back to that. Is that right?
Yes.
We'll come back to that one in a minute. All right. So item 6I, 2021-22 local audit reports. Administration will recommend the approval of the local auditor's report at the January 23rd board meeting. I assume this is the auditor report that we just
Yes, sir.
saw. And I'm guessing there's no comments or questions about the audit report because there wasn't much discussion Ms. Guy presented. Item 6J, Fulcrum Management Solutions Agreement for Thought Exchange. So this is a recommendation to approve to enter into agreement with Fulcrum Management Solutions for the use of Thought Exchange. Do you want to talk for a moment about what Thought Exchange is?
Absolutely. So Thought Exchange is a rather unique crowd-controlled survey tool. It asks one question, and then individuals are able to put their thoughts, which is basically their responses in. Those responses then, and this is where it really differentiates itself from other surveys, are allowed to be rated or starred, and that allows the most popular or important ideas to be risen, allows them to rise to the top. The initial use for this is going to be for a profile of a grad. One of the steps will be to ask our stakeholders at least 2 questions that will help gather information about what's important to them, the skills and attributes that our students will need upon graduation, which we will then work and refine to get to eventually a defined profile of a graduate. Okay, so that is the big use of this tool is to drive that profile of a grad, from which we will then look at instruction, and everything else will rotate around that. How do we support that profile of a grad? How do we measure our kids' ability to meet those standards? So it's really the linchpin, and it is the most effective tool, and I've used it previously, I think, pretty successfully. It really allows that process to be streamlined and to be really, really accessible to everyone. And my plan for that is staff, students, community, parents, so that we get a holistic approach of what the values of our community are for what our kids should be able to know and do and be. So super important. It can be used. It also has several other. You can use it in meetings, but that's really kind of the big ticket reason that I'm asking for the board to approve this.
So this total cost of $20,000 says for a year-long subscription, but I assume that this is something we're going to want to use beyond just 1 year.
So like many things, it is really expensive. I think my goal is to get what we need to get out of it for this year towards the profile of a grad. If we're finding, it is a great communication tool. I think I would come back to the board for a further approval. I didn't want to commit us too far out, because it is kind of pricey.
So the recommendation is for a one-time out-of-fund balance purchase of the year-long subscription if administration decides that it's useful enough to warrant like continued use, then it would sort of show up in the normal budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions about Thought Exchange?
I'll just add my feedback. My company that I work for uses it, and it's an amazing tool.
Agreed.
Item 6K, the Youth Truth Survey. Recommendation to enter into a 3-year agreement with the Youth Truth Student Survey, cost of $13,500 for a year-long subscription. Do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. The back end of this, Youth Truth is another survey. I know what you may be thinking, we need 2 survey tools. Well, the answer to that is I believe so, because Youth Truth is more holistic. It looks at things like engagement, belonging, academic prowess. It's a much deeper dive and goes into greater detail, and we get way more specific information. So this will be tied to individual buildings, and we will be looking at not only our students, but our staff and our parents. Basically, it is going to set a baseline for a number of different areas. And the vision moving forward is we get this baseline data, and then every year, let me back up. We get this baseline data for each building. That informs administrators' building goals for example, if we see that a certain building student engagement is not where it should be, then the principal and the staff begin to work on goals to impact those. The value of Youth Truth is it has a lot of value. The 2 things that set it apart are, in many surveys, you're surveying the entire country. You don't know if you're looking at apples to apples. Youth Truth survey allows you to match yourself up and compare yourself to other districts that look like you. So obviously Shippensburg's very, very different from a school in Philadelphia or even Cumberland Valley, and you can't always say, hey, we're doing better or worse than those folks. It allows us to localize the comparisons and give us really good feedback from there. The other part is what I just alluded to, and that is the ability to have longitudinal data over time to see if we're making progress in targeted areas. So it is a 3-year agreement. However, I did make sure that we had an out clause if the board changes their mind moving forward at that expense. Given where we are with budgeting, we can, with notice, be removed from it.
A question for you, is there an opt-out for parents, and will parents be notified ahead of time?
Absolutely. So this is really a how are we doing kind of survey, and where should we improve. So the survey takes about 15 to 30 minutes tops. We will communicate out. Youth Truth is very good at their PR and their communications, and have a lot of tools to get it out, to the public. Any parent that doesn't want their student to participate, they would just let us know.
All right, thank you. Item 6L, yeah, L, I, L. Agreement between Franklin and Marshall College and Shippensburg Area School District. Administration will recommend entering into a 2-year agreement with Franklin and Marshall College to host Pennsylvania College Advising Corp. I believe that we've been doing this for some time, right? This is a continuation of a past
Yes,
program.
sir. In my meeting with high school students about 3 weeks ago, they were, we have a great person in there now. I think it's Mr. Ford. He does a great job, and the kids were very expressive of how much he's helped them. So we hope to get a similar individual moving forward.
Any comments, questions on that item? Item 6M, participation in Shippensburg Community Partnership. So the Community and Outreach Committee, along with administration, recommends the district's formal participation with the Shippensburg Community Information Partnership Organization. The SCIP will be comprised of the Borough of Shippensburg, Shippensburg Township, Southampton Township, Franklin County, Southampton Township, Cumberland County, Shippensburg University, and the Shippensburg Area School District. Ms. Wolfinger is chairperson of the Outreach Committee. Do you want to speak to this?
I'm excited about the partnership. Again, I think, a lot of the initiatives that we need to do at this, within the school district really, require us to get the community involved, and to really just be a part of bridging that gap. So I'm excited to work with them on.
What would their formal participation look like?
Actually, Al was at the first meeting that they had. Al, do you want to speak to that any?
At this point, there's no monetary involvement on anyone's part. They're just getting off the ground. About 15 years ago, they tried something similar. They were probably, from being at this first committee meeting, they had some self-inflicted wounds of maybe trying to accomplish too much too soon, and it ended up dying off. So this is more of start small and build up. And as it goes along, there may be some contribution we would have to make from a fiscal standpoint. But at least for the first year in getting this off the ground, it's what I basically talked about previously when I shared with you.
So is the model that administration will send a representative?
That's correct.
Okay.
I've already committed Becky, but that's with her permission. And also, the thought is that there would be one of the other school leaders, one of Mr. August's delegates, designees that would attend with Becky.
So one board member and one administrator?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this at Southampton Cumberland Building every Thursday mornings?
It's once a month.
It's a month, it's new, it's brand new.
This is something that's brand new.
It's never been.
It's what we started.
Where we start. But is that going to be different? Because the mayor and them have something to do.
Still going in that same direction.
That's Park and Rec.
Yes.
That's Park and Rec side.
That's
But there's another government agency that they have.
That's
Chamber of
joint government.
Joint government, something different.
Yeah.
That's something different.
This is
Okay.
different.
Okay. This is strictly Park and Rec, what we're talking about.
This is focused on parks and recreation and all the opportunities that come along with that. And I would just say, just a really enthusiastic group there. I think it's going to be great for us to be a part of this program.
Yeah, I agree.
Terrific, thanks. Item 6N, Work Partners Life Solutions Services Renewal Agreement. Recommendation of approval, or to approve attached 1-year renewal agreement with Work Partners Life Solutions. Do we need clarification on this? Is this a standard?
Just an employee assistance program, pretty standard for districts around the state.
Item 6O, contract with DJ Genergy?
Genergy.
Sorry. recommending the approval of the attached contract with DJ Genereve and the Shippensburg Area Middle School for a winter dance to be held on Friday, March 31st. Item 6P, middle school construction project change orders. I'm going to let the superintendent speak to this. This will be on the agenda, the action agenda next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Goetz. So board members, our middle school project, as I talked about in facilities, is going to be moving. There's a tight timeline to get it done, as there always are with school construction projects. This is a fairly standard amendment or process where if there's a change order needed, rather than waiting until the board meeting at a certain level of $20,000 or less, consulting with myself, Christy, and Chad, it grants temporary approval, so the process is not slowed down. Those changes would then be brought to the board for the approval at that process, but it doesn't slow us down. I hate to predict the future, but I'm going to predict the future that the building project's going to be tight. And so, we will do all due diligence, just as you would, to make sure that we're not, approving things that don't need approved. So these are things that are material to the process continuing, that we would have no other choice but to do. I know the word change order gives me rash, as I'm sure it does everyone here on the board. So, yeah. Questions on that?
No, I'm just excited. I see the fences up. The fences went up. That's when I
It's
knew
been
we were close.
long time coming. Long time coming.
They're
Yes.
going to be up for a year, though, before anything starts.
No, yeah. If there are any concerns or questions about that, please speak to Mr. August and let him help you resolve your concerns. The next three items, we've talked about all of these already. Item 6Q, K-12 school guidance plan, which we saw earlier. Item 6R, memorandum of understanding for the school resource officer, which is attached. Encourage you to look that over. And then item 6S, which is the resolution not to raise taxes above the index, which is the recommendation of administration. Are there questions or concerns on any of those three items? All right. We have made it to our second citizens comments period. Citizen comment period regarding non-agenda items. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Darren, second time, excellent.
I just had a few notes I took during the discussion. With the taxing to the index, I remember early last year we had a little bit of a discussion. Because we reside in two counties, I know there's an issue where we can only tax one county. I don't know if there's any way to fix that, or because I feel like that's a big loss.
We would 100% agree with that, sir. And we actually are meeting with our representative this week,
Friday.
to broach that with him and put it on his radar. Unfortunately, there are only 8 districts in the 88 districts in the state. So we have to create our own urgency around that and get some relief from that. So it's on the radar, and we're working on it.
I just wanted to bring it up.
And not just we working on it. The professional organization that I belong to, PASBO, Pennsylvania Associations of School Business Officials, they've actually started this charge and this lead to try to make this change. And so they will actually be attending our meeting with our legislative, but they're also trying to work with the other 88 school districts to adopt resolutions. Our board might eventually see one come through to adopt a resolution so that then they can go and they can talk to the various legislators across the state and hopefully get a change for us 88 school districts.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Did you say that there are 88 school districts that cross county lines?
That is correct.
And for context, I believe there's 499 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania, or excuse me, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
But there's one that has 3, right? Because you and I had talked about
Actually 4. There's
four that have
one.
3.
There's
One has-
there's one district that sits in 4 counties,
One that 4.
and then there's several that sit in 3.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're lucky. We're just two.
All right, board comments. Mr. Suitors, would you like to lead us off?
Good.
Good. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, who controls the thermostat? It's cold in here. That has to be corrected by the next meeting.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that, Mr. Scott.
I'm cold too.
Dressed for the brother.
I know I care about you.
Ms. Wolfinger?
I do. I have something I want to read. I'm going to try to do this without using this. That's my goal right now. But I just really wanted to kind of share my heart when it comes to Dwayne. What do you say about a man like Dwayne Burt? I say he was a man who loved and cherished three things: his family, his friendships, and his community. We talked regularly about his family, the love he had for his amazing wife. It's the love that we all dream to feel when we are searching for our life partner. The conversations always made me feel like he was a teenager with a high school crush, the kind that probably still made him shake at his knees a little bit. His kids and his grandbabies, well, I felt like they were the apple of his eye. He was so proud of William and MC, and every chance he got to brag about them and their accomplishments, he did. He always took that opportunity. He often reminisced when we would be talking about something board related that he would refer back to their high school football games and, that he got to be a part of those seasons of marching band, because it was something that him and I had in common. I could always tell that that's where his passion for the district began. And it really was through his children's experiences that he wanted all children to experience the same thing. Sometimes meaningful friendships happen with the most unlikely people in life. Our friendship started off at a pretty contentious time. I think all of us that are in here know how rough the COVID years were. And it saddens me that some people didn't get to know Dwayne the way that some of us did. He was one of those people that it took some time to figure him out. But when you peeled back the layers and really listened with a purpose, you knew his heart and his intent were always genuine and selfless. In my short time of working on the school board with him, Dwayne really made a huge impact on me, and it was totally unexpected. Our friendship was like no other friendship I've had in my life. It was built on mentorship, purpose, and a mutual pursuit for the people and the things that we love the most. We spoke almost daily, sometimes multiple times a day, and sometimes on a three-way call. What I loved was that he was not someone who wanted to be in the spotlight. He wasn't someone who needed to claim a victory. He was just a person who was happy knowing that his work and the time he invested in you as a person or in the community was a part of change. Dwayne was one of the most humble men I've ever met. In such a short time, he taught me more about the kind of spouse, mother, community member, and human being that I want to be, and where I fall short now through his leadership. I know that I can become the person I never knew was possible to become. He had this effect on anyone who let him in and became his friend. In closing, carrying on his work and his legacy is now the responsibility of his family and friends to pursue his vision of a community built on mutual respect, teamwork, and purpose, to become the community who he knew we could become. I believe his leadership will be felt in Shippensburg for many years to come because he served. My only regret is that some of our community members and even some of you guys did not get to know the real person that I knew. He was someone who really loved this district and this community. And so many of us, out of being creatures of habit, choose to hold on and not let go, myself included. As a new year has just started, I challenge each of us to commit to Dwayne's legacy he left of true commitment and professionalism, and to work for our bosses, who are the kids, teachers, and staff, because we are not here for ourselves, we are here to serve. And I'm going to end with this quote. Nelson Mandela once said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived, It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead.
Gressler, yeah.
So, first thing is Dominic Frontino, just to recognize him. I think he won his weight class at the Trojan Wars tournament last weekend. To go back to the donation report, super nice and great to see, and I'm not sure, it's probably Sarah who reached out to the Nicholas Ryan Over Foundation, but the extra AED unit that's coming in, with the athletic department, as you see, as everybody saw last week, the football player from the Buffalo Bills, that's that. Now, what I was going to say is, Dr. Goetz, I thought you nailed it pretty good at the beginning, and then Becky just did too. So I just had a quick comment on Mr. Burt. So if anyone who's been to these meetings or watched these meetings or even sat here, you know that Mr. Burt and myself have most definitely had some spirited conversations, but that's an example of why he was good at what he did and good at his role. He was extremely well prepared, and I learned really quickly that if I was going to state my case in an argument for something, then I need to bring my A game every night. And he challenged me to do that. Last summer, when Dwayne and I started exchanging some phone calls about some personal, issues that were personnel issues in the district, I found out two things really quick. One, that he definitely thought out every possible scenario that could happen at all times. He literally lived, ate, and breathed Shippensburg Area School District. And the second thing that I learned was that no phone call was ever going to be just a moment of my time, even though Dwayne always started out the conversation by saying that. So I just want to say thanks to Mr. Burt for pushing myself and so many other people for so long to be the best version of themselves. Thank you.
Mr. Bard?
I don't know comments.
Mr. Boudreaux?
Just real quick, regarding Dwayne. I've served with Dwayne on two different periods on this board, and his representation has always been the same. And I think that his representation can be defined in two words, dedicated and selfless. Dwayne's going to be, the amount of sorrow and how much Luann and William and MC will miss Dwayne is just unfathomable. But this board has a big pit in it right now, and there's a big part of it missing. And we'll move on, we'll appoint somebody, but Dwayne's absence will be felt for years to come on this board. And, Dwayne, rest well.
Ms. Everly?
So I just wanted to give a shout out to our business administration on their A+ on their audit. That's awesome. And I just wanted, Dwayne was my friend, but, a true mentor never really dies, but their work continues to live with the work that we do, with the knowledge and the treasures that they've taught us, and we'll stay in it.
Thank you. I appreciate all those comments in regards to Dwayne, and I'm going to miss Dwayne too, and this board's going to miss Dwayne. And honestly, when I first met him and when he was first elected to this board, that is not something that I would have thought that I'd say this, that the board would miss him. But I came to know him and came to really respect him, and I'm going to miss him personally, and I echo y'all's words. This board is absolutely going to miss him as well. Just a couple of other quick comments. I continue to appreciate y'all's patience with me as I sort of learn how to do this thing and appreciate that. So thank you. I also want to just take a moment and thank the Shippensburg Community Resource Coalition. Clearly, this board wasn't inclined to partner on the Terrace Metrics and Care Solace deal, but I hope I'm probably gonna have to reach out to somebody individually, but if, I hope word gets back that at least I am very appreciative of your initiative to come to the board with recommendations, and maybe this isn't the right program for the district at this time, but I appreciate the mission of the SCRC, and I appreciate that they would come to the board with these proposals, and I hope that they are not discouraged from continuing to come to the board with these proposals, because we need these kinds of partnerships, and they're a help to fulfilling our mission. All right, with that, the information, date saver, there are several things. This is School Directors Appreciation Month, so thank you all. Appreciated. January 10th, high school chorus and Sharps Winter concert at 7 p.m. in the Senior High School Auditorium. January 13th is Staff Development Day. My son informed me today they didn't have school on Friday. January 16th, the district is closed for the Martin Luther King holiday. January 17th, high school marching band concert at 7 p.m. in the Senior High School Auditorium. January 23rd is our next school board meeting. It'll be at 7 p.m. right here. January 26th through 28th, Shrek the Musical, presented by the High School Drama Club. And I'm just going to say once again, if you have not attended one of the musicals, either by the middle school or the high school, you are missing out. Every year I'm just in awe at what our students can do. February 13th is our next school board meeting, currently scheduled for 7 p.m. at the here again. February 15th, Act 80 Day, no school for students. February 20th, the district is closed for the President's Day holiday, and then February 27th will be our second board meeting of February. With that, I just want to note that we need to continue, hopefully very briefly, our executive session from the beginning, where we will continue to discuss matters related to property. Yes, and because we are a person short on the board, we will be making an appointment. There will be a formal announcement, I believe, that will be posted to the district website. Our practice now is that interested parties should, this will be in the posting and the instructions will be there, but interested parties should express their interest by letter to the district. And then in our next meeting, our next January meeting, interested candidates will be invited to come to the meeting to talk about their interest in being part of the board, but that is not required. What is required is that you present a letter and that you live within the appropriate district. Dwayne's district is District C, which is that portion of the borough of Shippensburg that is in Cumberland County. So you must reside within that portion of Cumberland County to express interest to be appointed. All right, with that, we will adjourn. Oh, do I need a motion? I don't know.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.